At 4 a.m., the world is silent, and silence has a language that only those who embrace it can understand. There is something extraordinary about this stillness, something almost sacred. When you wake up at that hour, you are not just waking up earlier than others, you are waking up to yourself. In those quiet hours, there are no distractions pulling you in 100 different directions, no noise from the outside world competing for your attention. It feels as if time slows down, as if the universe itself is giving you a pause to breathe, to reflect, and to reset. This stillness is not emptiness. It is a space filled with possibility. And when you learn to sit with it, to listen to it, you begin to hear the whispers of your own heart that often get drowned in the chaos of the day. Most of us spend our days running after tasks, running after deadlines, running after people's approval. We are constantly surrounded by voices that tell us what to do, how to act, who to be. But at 4 a.m., when the world is sleeping, there is only one voice left, the voice within. And that voice, though soft, is the most powerful guide you will ever have. It asks you the questions you've been avoiding. It reminds you of the dreams you buried. And it tells you the truth you often ignore. To be able to connect with that voice, you need stillness. And there is no better time for that stillness than the early hours of the morning. It is in this sacred quiet that clarity is born. Problems that seemed overwhelming yesterday begin to look smaller when you see them in the calm of dawn. Decisions that felt impossible suddenly begin to make sense. It is as if the fog clears and you finally see the road ahead. This is not magic. It is the gift of stillness. When the noise of the world fades, the noise in your own mind also begins to settle. And what is left is clarity. Sharp, undeniable clarity. And clarity, when combined with action, is the most powerful force that can shape your destiny. But the stillness of 4 a.m. is not just about reflection. It is also about energy. It is the time when your mind is most alert and your body most prepared to receive. Have you ever noticed how fresh the air feels at dawn? How different the sky looks, how alive everything seems. That freshness does not just surround you, it enters you. It renews your energy. It strengthens your focus. It fills you with a kind of determination you cannot find at any other time. In those hours, you are not just ahead of the world in terms of time. You are ahead in terms of mindset. You have already won half the battle before the day has even started. This habit of waking up at 4 a.m. is not about punishing yourself with less sleep or forcing discipline without meaning. It is about choosing a time when life itself slows down, when you have the gift of undisturbed moments, and using those moments to connect with yourself and your vision for the future. Fear of losing health. It is about reclaiming the hours that most people waste in sleep and turning them into the foundation of your growth. Because the truth is, if you can master the stillness of dawn, you can master the noise of the day. And when you learn to begin your mornings with clarity, reflection, and energy, you begin to transform not just your mornings, but your entire future. Discipline is a word many of us resist because it demands something from us that comfort never will. When you choose to wake up at 4 a.m., you are not simply changing the time you rise from bed, you are rewriting the story of your priorities. At that hour, no one is asking you to wake up. There is no boss standing over your head, no deadline pressing you out of sleep. The only force that pulls you from the warmth of your blanket is discipline. And that discipline is what separates those who dream from those who make their dreams a reality. It is not desire that shapes destiny, because desire is easy. Everyone has it. What truly transforms a life is the discipline to act on that desire. Especially when it is uncomfortable, especially when it is hard. Desire says, I want to change my life. Discipline says, I will do what it takes to change my life. Desire says, I want to be successful. Discipline says, I will sacrifice my comfort to earn success. And the truth is, comfort is the greatest thief of potential. Comfort convinces you that sleeping a little longer won't matter, that you deserve to rest more, that tomorrow will be a better day to start. But tomorrow never arrives for those who listen to comfort, because every tomorrow becomes another excuse. Discipline, on the other hand, whispers, get up now. Not later, not someday, but now. And if you listen to it, it changes everything. There is something powerful about choosing discipline over desire. Because desire makes you feel good for a moment, but discipline makes you strong for a lifetime. When you decide to wake up at 4 a.m., you are training your mind to obey your goals instead of your feelings. You are teaching yourself that success is not about mood. It is about commitment. No one wakes up at that hour because it feels good. They wake up because they know growth begins where comfort ends. And once you start proving to yourself that you can keep the promises you make, your confidence grows, your self-respect grows, and your life begins to reflect that inner strength. This discipline does not just stay in your mornings. It spills into every part of your life. The way you treat your health, the way you handle your relationships, the way you pursue your goals, all of it changes. You begin to show up not only when it is convenient, but when it is necessary. You begin to realize that consistency matters more than intensity, that showing up every day, especially on the days you don't feel like it, is what builds greatness. At 4 a.m., discipline becomes a habit, and that habit becomes a lifestyle. And the beauty of discipline is that it is not dependent on talent or luck. Anyone can wake up at 4 a.m. if they decide to. Anyone can choose to silence the excuses and rise. It is not about who is smarter or more gifted. It is about who is willing to pay the price of discipline. That is why the early hours are so powerful. They are a test. They ask you, how much do you really want this future you keep talking about? And your answer is not in words, it is in action. When you begin to choose discipline over desire, you start living intentionally. You stop being a victim of laziness or distraction. And you start becoming the author of your own story. Every morning at 4 a.m., when you rise, you are telling the universe, I am serious about my dreams. I am willing to sacrifice for them. And I will not let comfort steal them from me. And with every day, you make that choice. your future begins to take shape. Not someday, not far away, but here and now. The way you begin your morning is the way you shape your destiny. It might sound simple, but it is one of the greatest truths of life. Every day is like a blank page, and the way you write the first lines often determines how the rest of the story unfolds. When you wake up at 4 a.m., you are not just getting an early start. You are setting the tone for the entire day. Those first hours are like seeds, and the way you plant them will decide the kind of harvest you reap by nightfall. If you plant seeds of focus, reflection, and energy, you carry that mindset with you into everything you do. But if you plant seeds of delay, distraction, and laziness, that also follows you like a shadow through your day. Think about how most people begin their mornings. They wake up late, rush to get ready, skip breakfast, scroll endlessly on their phones, and start their day in a state of chaos. If your morning begins in chaos, how can your day bring clarity? If your morning begins with distraction, how can your work bring excellence? The truth is, mornings set the rhythm, and rhythm creates results. That is why those who master their mornings often master their lives. They are not lucky, they are intentional. They understand that the morning is not something to waste, but something to invest in. When you wake up at 4 a.m., you give yourself time before the world demands it from you. You gain control before responsibilities begin to pull you in different directions. That early start allows you to decide who you want to be today, instead of letting circumstances decide it for you. And when you consistently start your day with purpose, you build a life that reflects that purpose. Every successful life is built on successful days, and every successful day is built on a strong morning. That is why mornings are not just hours of time, they are hours of transformation. At 4 a.m., you can choose to feed your mind with knowledge, your heart with reflection, and your body with strength. You can pray, meditate, write, exercise, read. Whatever aligns with your vision. These actions may seem small, but repeated daily, they shape character. They remind you every single day that you are not living by accident, you are living by design. And when you live by design, your life begins to align with your dreams. That is the power of shaping your mornings. It is also important to understand that mornings create momentum. The energy you build in those early hours doesn't stay there. It flows into the rest of your day. If you start strong, you carry strength with you. If you start calm, you carry peace with you. But if you start rushed and distracted, you carry that stress into everything you touch. This is why people who master the art of mornings are often the ones who seem more focused, more confident, and more productive. They are not carrying the weight of chaos. They are carrying the strength of clarity. Your future is not shaped by a single decision made once in your lifetime. It is shaped by the daily choices that add up over years. And one of the most powerful daily choices you can make is to master your mornings. Because if your morning shapes your day, and your days shape your life, then waking up at 4 a.m. is not just about today. It is about the future you are creating. Every early morning is an investment, And with each investment, your destiny is being built quietly but powerfully. And one day, when you look back, you will realize that your future was not transformed by big events or sudden miracles, but by the simple, consistent habit of starting your mornings with intention. There is a kind of strength that only comes from solitude, and 4 a.m. is the perfect time to embrace it. When the world is asleep, when no one is asking anything of you, when the noise of life has gone silent, you are left face to face with yourself, and in that meeting lies a power many people never discover because they are too afraid of being alone. But solitude is not loneliness. Loneliness is the absence of others, while solitude is the presence of yourself. At 4 a.m., in that sacred solitude, you begin to see who you truly are without the masks you wear for the world. You realize that growth does not always come from crowds or applause. Often, it comes from the quiet work you do in the shadows when no one is watching. Most people look for strength in external things, support from friends, recognition from society, validation from others. But those sources are temporary, and when they disappear, so does the strength they gave. Real strength comes from within, and solitude is the training ground where it is built. At 4 a.m., you practice being enough for yourself. You practice finding clarity without asking for confirmation. You practice standing tall without anyone cheering you on. And when you do this consistently, you begin to develop an unshakable foundation that no criticism, no rejection, and no failure can destroy. There is a reason why solitude feels uncomfortable for so many. It exposes the truth. When you sit with yourself, you cannot escape your fears, your doubts, or your weaknesses. They rise to the surface because there is nothing to distract you from them. But instead of running away, if you learn to confront them in the stillness of the early morning, you begin to transform them. The doubts that used to paralyze you become challenges you are ready to overcome. The fears that once controlled you lose their grip. The weaknesses you were ashamed of turn into areas of growth. Solitude becomes the mirror that shows you the reality of who you are, and also the canvas where you begin to paint who you can be. And this strength you build in solitude is not just for yourself. It prepares you for the world. Life will test you with failures, losses, and rejections. If your strength only depends on others, you will collapse when they are not there. But if you have built strength in solitude, you carry an inner resilience that no one can take away from you. At 4 a.m., when you choose to rise and embrace that solitude, you are silently training for those moments. You are building an armor made not of arrogance, but of self-awareness and inner peace. It is also in solitude that creativity is born. Great ideas rarely come in noisy rooms. They come in silence, when your mind is free to wander and your heart is free to speak. At 4 a.m., when the world sleeps, your imagination wakes. You see solutions you could not see before. You hear the whisper of inspiration, and you give space to the dreams that are too fragile to survive in the chaos of the day. Many of the world's greatest thinkers, artists, and leaders found their breakthroughs, not in company, but in solitude. That is the gift of those early hours. You are not just building strength, you are opening the door to possibility. When you embrace solitude at 4 a.m., you begin to understand that success is not about being surrounded by people all the time, but about learning to stand alone with grace. You realize that the person you need most is yourself. And once you strengthen that relationship, every other relationship becomes healthier. The world may admire the results of your journey, but it is in solitude that the journey truly begins. And when you rise in those early hours, you are not only building strength for today, you are preparing the kind of character that transforms your entire future. Transformation does not come from what you do once in a while. It comes from what you do every single day. Waking up at 4 a.m. one morning will not change your life. Just like going to the gym once will not make you strong. But the act of showing up again and again, even when you do not feel like it, is what shapes the person you become. Consistency is not glamorous, it is not loud, but it is powerful. It is the silent architect of transformation. At first, the results may not show. You may wake up early for a week and feel nothing has changed. But the truth is, change is already happening. Inside you, in the way your mind is being disciplined, in the way your habits are being reshaped. Transformation is not immediate, it is gradual. And consistency is the bridge that carries you from where you are to where you want to be. Most people give up too soon. They try something for a short while, and when they do not see instant results, they go back to old patterns. But those who keep going, those who choose to be consistent, even when there is no applause, are the ones who experience real change. Waking up at 4 a.m. every day is not about proving it to the world. It is about proving it to yourself. That you can commit, that you can persist, that you can stay the course. And when you consistently keep the promises you make to yourself, you begin to build a trust within that is unshakable. You stop doubting your own strength because you have evidence of it in your daily actions. Consistency also rewires your identity. At first, waking up at 4 a.m. feels like a challenge, something outside your comfort zone. But as you repeat it, day after day, it becomes a part of who you are. You are no longer someone trying to wake up early. You are someone who does. That shift in identity is where transformation truly begins. Because when your actions align with who you believe yourself to be, discipline stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling like a natural part of your life. You no longer force yourself to do it. You embody it. And with time, the small, consistent steps compound into something extraordinary. Reading for 30 minutes every morning may not seem life-changing, but over months and years, the knowledge you gather transforms the way you think and act. Exercising in those early hours may not show results in a week, but over time, your strength, health, and energy reach levels you never imagined. Writing your goals every morning may look simple, but with consistency, they stop being words on paper and start becoming your reality. Transformation is not a sudden event. It is the accumulation of small, consistent actions that compound into greatness. Consistency also teaches patience. In a world where everything is rushed, where people want quick success and instant gratification, waking up at 4 a.m. teaches you to value the long game. It shows you that real success is not about shortcuts, but about steady progress. You learn to celebrate discipline itself, rather than only waiting for results. And that shift in mindset gives you peace. Because you no longer chase change desperately. You trust the process, knowing it is already shaping you. The beauty of consistency is that it builds momentum. At first, it takes effort, but with time, it becomes easier. What once felt heavy becomes light. What once felt impossible becomes natural. And when that happens, transformation does not feel forced anymore. It feels inevitable. Each day you rise at 4 a.m. Each day you choose discipline over excuses. You are rewriting your future, line by line, habit by habit. And one day, you will look back and realize that your transformation did not come from one big leap, but from the quiet power of being consistent with one small choice. To rise when the world sleeps, and to keep rising until your future is everything you dreamed it to be. Every future worth living requires a sacrifice today. Nothing great is ever built without giving up something in return. And waking up at 4 a.m. is the clearest reminder of that truth. When the alarm rings and your body begs for more sleep, when comfort whispers that you deserve more rest, that is the exact moment where the choice is made. You can give in to ease, or you can sacrifice a little comfort for a much greater tomorrow. Every time you choose to rise, you are making a statement. My future is worth more than my excuses. My dreams are worth more than my temporary comfort. Sacrifice is never easy, and it is not meant to be. It is the price you pay to step into the life you have imagined. People often say they want success, but they also want to keep their comforts, their late nights, their excuses. They want the reward without paying the cost. But life does not work like that. If you want to create a future that is extraordinary, you must be willing to give up the ordinary. The habit of waking up at 4 a.m. is not just about time management. It is about teaching yourself that greatness demands something from you. It asks you to give up comfort, to give up laziness, to give up the idea that growth should ever be convenient. The sacrifice of today is what carves out the space for tomorrow's opportunities. When you wake early, you are sacrificing hours of sleep that were often wasted in the first place. You are sacrificing the illusion of ease so that you can have the reality of progress. And over time, these sacrifices add up. You gain more than you lose. You lose an hour of sleep, but you gain clarity, focus, and time to build the life you want. You lose a little comfort, but you gain a future that is worth living for. The world often admires success, but it rarely sees the sacrifices that built it. That is why people call it luck. But it is never luck. It is sacrifice, repeated every single day until it shapes destiny. The beauty of sacrifice is that it transforms not just your schedule, but your character. Every time you give up something small for something greater, you are telling yourself that you are capable of discipline, that you value your future more than your comfort. Slowly, you begin to carry that mindset into every area of life. You learn to sacrifice distractions for focus, temporary pleasures for long-term peace, short-term gains for lasting impact. And that is when transformation happens. Not because the future magically appears, but because you created it with the sacrifices you were willing to make. It is true that sacrifice feels heavy in the beginning. Waking up before dawn may feel painful. Giving up comfort may feel unfair. But with time you realize that you were not losing anything. You were gaining everything. You begin to see how those early mornings became the foundation of your strength. How those small sacrifices built habits that no challenge could break. And then sacrifice no longer feels like a burden. It feels like a privilege because you know it is the bridge between where you are and where you are meant to be. Your future is not waiting for chance. It is waiting for your sacrifice. It is waiting for you to decide that you are willing to pay the price today so that you can live with freedom tomorrow. And every time you rise at 4 a.m., every time you choose to give up a little comfort for a greater calling, you are not just waking up earlier. You are stepping closer to the future you have always dreamed of. That is the truth about sacrifice. It hurts in the moment, but it heals your tomorrow.